As you can see, we have got the most beautiful community, and I think that's something that we need to shout about. And so for us, our vision and our Howick is to bring people together for positive change. And our big vision is a prosperous city. And so we've done some research into what a city prosperity index looks like. And these are things that have shaped our vision. I want to run through a few of them quickly, and then I'm going to hand over to Brent, who's going to take us through some of the keys to building this prosperous city. The first thing we realized the research shows us, you can put up the next slide, is that there are 6 indicators or components of a prosperous city. The first one is productivity. A prosperous city contributes towards economic growth and development and generates income, employment opportunity, and equal opportunities to further the living standards of people in our community. And so as Love Howick, we've set aside obviously key strategic goals to do that. And one of them is an event like this, where we get together to establish ways of coming up with new economic engines to drive sustainable growth. I'm sure you recognize that if we're going to see transformation in our community, we've got to see our economy grow. And that means we've all have to play a part in that. And so we want to drive a coordinated vision of innovation, creativity to see our GDP increase and to sustain growth across our community. The second part of building productivity is to raise up entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurship is vital to growing and sustaining an economy. And so we are excited to be partnering with Entrepreneurship School, and you'll hear about that in a moment, to launch entrepreneurship training programs here in Howick that we can see 20, 30, 40, 50 entrepreneurs a year launched into sustainable business opportunities that grow our economy. And then connected to that is obviously media. We want to be able to attract the best of the best. We wanted to be able to attract visitors, and through tourism, which is one of our big draw cards in the area. And so productivity remains high on developing a vision of a prosperous city. The second one is infrastructure development and environmental sustainability. A prosperous city deploys the infrastructure, physical assets, and amenities like water, roads, information technologies, sanitation, all of those required to sustain the population and grow an economy. And so we are committed through various projects with local governments, with the business community, with those who are partnering with us to create a sustainable plan to build infrastructure in our community. One of our teams through the Renoverge projects, I'm sure you would have seen them on the streets. They wear green overalls and red shirts. Anyone seen them? We have been working with the YES program, which is a national program to create work opportunities for the unemployed youth. And so we've got 38 who are working with us at the moment in various projects to obviously train them and let them grow work skills for jobs, but also to give back to and build our community. And so full-time workers on the streets to clean up our verges, to clean up our water systems, to clean up some of our drainage systems. And when you go past them, I encourage you to hoot at them. 7 months down the line, I've had meetings with them. They are tired. They said they've had a lot of work to do to clean up this community. And I'm sure you can agree with me, it's looking better over the last 6 months. And our goal is to work with corporates, is to work with investors to actually renovate all the intersections and entry points to the community. Properly landscaped, redo paving, redo signage, and make our physical environment something that we can be proud of. That's the Renoverge project. We're also looking at a coordinated plan of urban renewal for the Howick precincts. It has been it's been earmarked as one of the top or one of the hotspots for national tourist attractions. And so working with, again, local governments and, again, private sector to come up with a plan to make the place that we want to attract tourists to something that's viable, something that is world-class, something that attracts outside investment. And so we're working on those projects to develop infrastructure and, again, remain environmentally sustainable. Our City Parks project, I was privileged to go to New York probably about 3 years ago to join Movement Day, which is 100 leaders from South Africa, to see what city transformation could look like. And one of the key indicators they gave was, if you want to see communities change, start by greening the spaces, which means parks, places for obviously families together, community members, neighborhoods together. They said it's one of the first indicators of urban renewal. And so we're involved in plans to do that, because our goal is that all the places that nobody wants to go become the places that everybody wants to go. And so working on a strategic vision to do that is one of the things that we are passionate about. So city parks, the Howick Falls precincts, Renoverge, cleaning up our verges, cleaning up our streets is key for us to see the prosperity of our city index increase. Are you excited about that? Third factor is quality of life. So it's not just about the physical resources, it's not just about the economic engines, it's also about the people. If we want to see this community and this city become prosperous, we've got to look after the people of our community. That means access to social services, education, health, safety, security, recreation, improved living standards. And so it is such a privilege to have launched a project this year called the Street Store. We're looking at the those in the poorer communities having access to the basic needs like clothing and food. And so our street store operates from our Dream Centre in Bell Street, and we've had close to 100 through since we opened up to get food and clothing. And so we rely on the community for donations for that, non-perishable food items, good second-hand quality clothing, all of it to bring quality of life to those who are poor in our community. The Hunger Busters program is working as well. From that Dream Centre, we're feeding those who have no income. And so every week, Nottingham Road Spa donates a whole lot of stuff towards our program, and those get distributed to families in need. And then to improve quality of life, one of the areas in Howick that has come to our attention over the years, and this was launched again 3 years ago, was that particularly state pensions were fixed and the cost of rentals were going higher. And so the elderly in our community were finding themselves very vulnerable. No places to call home, no way of finding safe accommodation. And so we launched our Oakley House, which is our first, and we're testing it out. And hopefully, as funding is available, we're rolling out more houses for the elderly who can't afford the private prices. And so to, again, improve the quality of life of our elderly, we want to see Oakley houses in every suburb, that there is a safe house for the elderly who can't afford the rentals and can find community in those places. The fourth indicator for city prosperity is equity and inclusion. And a city is only prosperous to the extent that poverty and inequalities are minimal and reduced. And I know I'm speaking to the converted here, but as business, as government, we have a responsibility as churches to be driving down poverty and inequality and creating space for all citizens in a community to come together and find their place, their basic needs met. And so, no city can claim to be prosperous with large segments of a population living in poverty. And I think if we look around our community, there's still a lot of work to do. And I want to encourage us to find ways that we can network together to reduce poverty in our community. As Love Howick, we've got this audacious goal in the next 10 years to totally destroy poverty in our area. And that obviously is working closely with business and government. And so I invite you into the conversation. One of the things we've done, again, about over a year ago, was launched our Job Skills Training Center called the Dream Center. The slogan is empowered to make a change, because most people in poverty don't want to be in poverty. It's not a choice. It's a whole lot of conditions, a whole lot of things that have happened in their lives to get them to that place. And so the Dream Center aims to skill them, and not only skill them, empower them with vision and dreams for their future. And so we run various programs there, and I'm excited about the work that's happening, excited about our team that are involved there. Over the last year, we have seen close to 200 people come through the center. They have been through our job readiness program, which is a 3-week program to get them ready for the workforce, to get them employable, to get them ready to find jobs, to keep jobs, to have job interviews. And then our second phase, we offer job skills training in IT, office admin, waitering. I met with our trainer today from the waitering courses. He said out of 19 that have been trained in the last 2 months, 16 of them have found work in local restaurants and hospitality industry. And it's exciting, beautiful stats. That's after 2 months. And it's just a great thing to boast about. Barista training. We've had one of our our baristas from the local community go down to PE to get trained to run an academy here that hopefully will supply a lot of our coffee shops going forward. And so barista training will be starting in November. Merchandising for supermarket stores, cashiers, English in the workplace. We've just launched a parenting course. It's called Courageous Parenting. And it's running to try and restore the family unit in our poverty communities. Someone's excited about that. I'm just going through some of them. We're about to launch a course for cleaners. We're looking at launching a plumbing and a welding course, a bricklaying course, beauty and makeup design, and that's just the beginning, so that we can start to see those in poverty get the skills they need, get the job opportunities they need. And our Dream Center also acts as a job center. And so if you're looking for skilled labor, you can contact them, and there's a link between the labor markets and the unemployed market so that we can see poverty reduced. In the next 10 years, we can hopefully see a massive dent in that stat across our nation. I think our unemployment stat is sitting at 60-something% across our nation, and so we have got a lot of work to do. So we want to see equity and inclusion and poverty reduced. And then lastly, governance and legislation. Cities are best able to combine sustainability and prosperity through effective governance and transformational leadership. And one of the key things that we are trying to do through our skills training, through our entrepreneurship school, through our networks, is build leadership capacity in this community. We need strong leaders. We need strong leaders in government. We need strong leaders in business. We need strong leaders in education. We need strong leaders in family and every sector of society. And so we've taken the responsibility to start dreaming about what a leadership academy could look like, connected obviously to our entrepreneurship school, and try and in every sector build leadership capacity so we can see this prosperous city emerge. Who's excited? As I said, I visited New York a few years ago, and I was amazed, and you can put that last picture up because I think it's great, and just a little example is sometimes we look at the areas that are the most difficult and the most challenging and the most underused and the most grubby, and we write them off. But part of urban renewal is looking at those difficult problems, pain points, difficult areas in our community and saying, what are the solutions that I carry to see this area revived? And I was in New York, and they had one of the, obviously, the biggest rail systems that had got outdated. And so for a number of years, there, through the main part of the city, there was this unutilized, underused railway line system. And so what they did is they got together, the city planners, and they decided to turn it into the top tourist destination for New York City. And I walked it. It's a couple of Ks. I thought it was shorter. So by the end, I needed to go buy a new pair of shoes because I had blisters all over. But it was the most beautiful walk. You walk over the city in a previously derelict place where drug addicts hung out, a place where obviously all sorts of social ills were housed. They cleared it up, and they made this beautiful walkway all the way through with gardens, with play equipment, with places to sit, with music hubs all the way along the way, with cafes coming onto it. And you'll see, you can't probably see it properly there, but it's kilometers of unutilized railway lines that they created a tourist attraction called the Skyline. Anyone ever walked it? You've seen it on TV. Do yourself a favor, when you go to New York City, I encourage you, please walk it. You'll be inspired at what you can do with the places and the people and the situations everyone else has written off, with a bit of innovation and creativity. So I challenge us to get involved. As I said when we started, we are better together, and if we start believing that and start adding our part, this is not about one person or two people. This is not about government should do this, business should do this, church. We're all together for one vision, a prosperous city. And I want to champion us as we start even today. Let's make that our vision. Let's not make our own personal visions the priority. Let's make our collective vision of a prosperous city our key priority. Because when we do that, it's not just for us, it's for generations to come. And so, well done for being here. Well done for being part of the change. And I look across this room, there's lots of people involved already. If you're not, you can chat to us afterwards. But we want to see this local community. They call it a small town. I think it's a small town with big people. And so we want to turn that into big opportunities, big vision, and big exciting things that draw people from all over the world. So without further ado, I want to invite somebody who is going to spur us on in that journey, give us some big ideas today, and hopefully get you thinking. If the various industries and sectors that are represented here, we are going to have a moment at the end for question and answers, and hopefully to again get some feedback from you as to where you feel you can get involved. So please don't leave here if you have a stirring question or a stirring you want to get involved in something, because by the end of this, we want to develop some type of steering committees to take these ideas and make them actionable. Otherwise, we've just wasted 2 hours of our time here. Part of the thing is practical solutions, and so Brent's going to talk us through that. But I want to, if you've got questions, we will have question answers at the end, and we will have an engagement zone at the end where you can sign up for things and be part of that growth going forward. But Brent and I met over Skype. I was researching for our entrepreneurship school and wanting to find a program that we could use here in Howick. And I kept coming back to this website called Entrepreneurship School with their 12-part program that was practical, it was accessible, the time frame wasn't too long. You know, most times you look at entrepreneurship programs, it's years of study, and we just don't have that time. And so this program kept sparking my attention. And so I wrote an email from a stranger to somebody who probably looked and going, who are you? I said, we need your program in Howick. Can we talk? And so he said, yes, let's Skype. And we Skyped, and we've been Skyping ever since, looking at ideas, sharing vision. We were speaking the same language, we were speaking the same vision. He's just got a lot of insight into how to build that practically as an entrepreneur, as obviously a speaker, as a teacher, as a trainer. And so can you put your hands together and welcome a gift to our city, Brent Badenhorst.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here today. I love Howick. It's such a beautiful place. I was actually here when I was grade 8, but I was in that space where you can't appreciate nature, right? Who's been in that space where you're young, you're cool, you don't want to, you've got the look, the t-shirt, the glasses, everything, so you just look at the waterfall, and there wasn't a lot of water. It was just like this, and I was asking my parents, is this a waterfall? But I was at the waterfall yesterday, and it's beautiful, lovely, and I love just the open fields and the beauty. When I actually selected my seat, I selected one at the window because I wanted to look at the Midlands area when we flew over, and it was beautiful. So great stuff. I think there's a lot of potential in Howick. I think you guys should be really optimistic of what could be done in this region. And as Matt said, the Minister of Tourism earmarked Howick as a potential tourist attraction going forward. So that's huge. That is absolutely massive. And I've got 2 things that I want to say before I start. The first thing is I want each one sitting here today to think about what your responsibility is to this community. What can you do that can actually take this community forward? In your position, in your capacity, with your talents, your strength, your gifts, your abilities, what can you do? That's a big question you need to ask yourself. The second thing is, it's actually something that I wrote down. This is of notes that I've took over the last couple of months in studying the economy. Even if the economy grows, the poor will remain poor unless they decide to play a meaningful role in the economy. Okay, that's a powerful thought. So there's opportunity, there is possibilities, but if you're not, or if you don't decide, I'm going to actually take part in what's happening here, nothing's going to change. It's that quote from Albert Einstein that says, if you're doing the same thing over and over and you're expecting a different result, you are crazy. It's insanity. You got to do something different. You got to change the seed. A farmer never goes to his crops and if he wants apple trees, he sows lemon seeds. It ain't going to happen. It's like the Bible is very clear. The Bible says you will reap exactly what you sow. Exactly. All right. So if you want to change the harvest, change the seed. Cool. So that's the 2 thoughts I want to start off. Think about your responsibility and you got to make a decision to actively play a role in what's happening in Howick in the next couple of years. Are you guys ready? Good. I was born ready. All right. We're ready to start. You can go over with the clips. So just a quick introduction. I'm from Cape Town, and I started with business startups way back in 2013. I started a company Partners, and we focused on compliance and helping people to get the right compliance in place when they started a business. So that's my background. Very soon I realized that it's actually my passion. I love it. I love working with people. I love inspiring people to actually go out, take action, and think practically about their business. And in 2015, I got the idea to play a bigger part in the economy, so I started to think about how that is possible, and I thought, obviously, of entrepreneurship. It's a great buzzword going around in nowadays, but I don't see much happening. So I actually studied that for a long time on my own. I was sitting for a year and a half in a coffee shop every Saturday. Nobody paid me to do that. I was just exercising my skills. I was exercising my talent. I was exercising the value that I wanted to add to the market. And I got to some real practical ideas to how I can actually help people to start a business, which starts at one point, ends at another point, and give the guys steps that if they execute, they'll be in a position to start their business. So that's where I started. At age 25, I got a franchise from Company Partners, so I had my own team. All this stuff is waving off there. So at age 25, I got a franchise, so I got my own team. I started the business there, and there was my real experience in how to do business. I was... what's the right word? Sorry, English is my second language. I'm actually Afrikaans. So I got promoted to operational director at age 27, and that was in 2016. And in 2017, I really started to practically think about the business that I want to build. So I exited Company Partners, and I launched officially Entrepreneurship School in January 2018. And that is the background in a nutshell. If you want to know more, invite me for lunch. I still don't have a lunch date today. All right. Next, you can go to the next slide. Our services include, we focus on the idea of helping people to start a business, helping people to grow a business. And we do that through business plans. We assist people to get a proper business plan in place and not a 100-page theoretical document. It's got to be practical, but it's got to comply as well to the funders and the lenders. So we do that. We've got 3 options, and then we also have a very practical business program that is a 12-week process. It's 1 session per week. The guys get a lot of homework in between that they have to go and do. And what we focus on with a business program, you guys can go to the next slide. What we focus on with a business program is really to start at one point and finish at another point. And the starting place is you got to define the vision. So what is the vision of the business? What do you see and what do you want to do? And if you can get the right foundation in place, you can build the right business on that foundation. And I think in South Africa, we're in a space where a lot of people start a business because they need to survive. Work is getting less, the need is growing more, the economy is decreasing, and times is getting tough. So people go to the next best thing, which is using their technical skill to start a business. And that's 100% correct. The only problem is that technician doesn't necessarily understand business. So it's one thing to be a good technician. It's another thing to be a good business person. Let's take an example. The plumber starts a plumbing business because he's very good in plumbing. Nobody's arguing that fact. The problem is 80% of the business success depends on the marketing and the sales, and that's something that the plumber knows nothing about. And then he finds himself very quickly in a space where he's not getting enough business in. Even though he's good with the technical work, he can't generate leads, he can't convert those leads into sales. And if he by some chance gets 1 or 2 clients and word of mouth spreads, he has no understanding of how to build a system that will help him to leverage and employ people to actually take his business further. So he's working 14 to 16 hours a day. He's wearing all the hats. He's doing the admin. He's doing the sales. He's doing the marketing. He's doing the technical stuff. It's fine for the first 3 months because you're passionate. You're following your dream, right? And then you burn out. And suddenly this thing is becoming the biggest pain in your life and the biggest problem. The family takes strain. Everything takes strain, your health. And you never really understood how to build a business. So that's the space we find ourselves in South Africa at this stage. It's survival entrepreneurship, and you go to the next best thing, which is my technical skill. You should do that, but you should also understand business. So that's what we focus on with the business program, is to really get the foundation and the idea of what entrepreneurship is actually all about. I imprint that in the guy's brain over 12 weeks, and we assist them with setting up proper marketing, branding, proper sales systems, proper operational systems. We do a financial session with the guy where he can actually sit and plan his financial situation. And we finish off with how to create a business culture, right? Because that's nobody goes out and says, I'm going to be corrupt. I'm going to start a business and I'm going to be corrupt. It happens because there wasn't a foundation of a culture that you want for your business in place. So a business culture will either be created by the leader or by the guy with the loudest mouth. So you decide, as the leader of the business, you're going to take action. You're going to create a culture with ethical values that actually protects the vision of the business. So that's what we end off with. I love that session because it's just getting back to ethical basics, which sadly seems like it's lost in South Africa. It's like the norm almost to be corrupt, and I think that is not the way we should address this going forward. Is that correct? Do you guys agree? Fantastic. Okay. Cool. So 2 testimonials from the business program. I want to share this to show the success of the practicality of the program. The one is Neil Smuts, who has a company in Cape Town. Typical technician. Very difficult guy. My life was in danger at one stage, especially when I touched on his branding. You can just see the barriers go up, and I thought he was going to slap me or something. And I think to myself, like, he's paying me to come on the course. I give my honest opinion, and he's offended. I don't understand that. Like, why don't you stay away? Anyways, but I helped the guy to identify his biggest problem, which was marketing and sales. And we set up a few sales channels for him and a few marketing channels. And on the course, we activated some ads for him. Initially, he was very upset because he had to spend money now on the ads. I only found that out afterwards, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You want to make money, but you don't want to spend anything on advertising. Doesn't make sense. But then he generated over 80,000 Rand with that advertising that we set up for him. And that, for me, is the pinnacle of helping someone with his business. You teach that guy to catch fish for himself. And if the 12 weeks are over, the idea is that he never comes back to me again. Because then I actually planted a seed, and I taught this guy how to fish for himself, that he can be sustainable going forward. That's the idea of the business program. And the second testimonial is a girl that wanted to go into, or she wanted to create her own dance company. And she came on the entrepreneurship program or the business program, and just by following the steps without any personal consultation initially, she just followed the steps of the program. She was in a position to start a business. And then afterwards, I advised her on certain aspects. And now she's like running 8 months after launching. She's quit the job in the process, and she's running this business full time. So that's a massive testimony. I'm very proud when I see stuff like that happens. It's really my passion. It's like that's what I live for, to see that. Great. Okay, so that's the team. You can't see a lot from that picture, but it's fine. There's 4 people there. And growth is never by mere coincidence, or it's never an accident. Like it's always forces working together. That's where growth comes from. And one of the biggest keys is unity. So I want to encourage you guys, as I go through this presentation, to think unity. How can we all work together to make a difference in this community? So keep that principle in mind as we go through. You can go to the next slide. Next one. Okay, so first of all, I want to touch on the foundation of economical cycles, not because I think you guys don't understand the economy. I just want to make a point when it comes to the practical side of how we're going to address this stuff here in Howick. So there's about 4 cycles in an economy. You get the recovery phase, you get a boom, you get the recession, and then you get a depression. Okay, so currently we all know South Africa is in a recession. The economy is going down, businesses are in a liquidation process, consumer spending is low, and it's like one negative cycle after the next that just follows on each other. And I believe we need to find ways to reverse that momentum. We got to find a way to reverse the momentum to get the economy switched up into going into a recovery phase. So I'm going to share some ideas that is practical on that. And one of the biggest things to switch the momentum is to increase consumer spending. You want to increase consumer spending, and you want to unlock investment from businesses. Okay, so it's a difficult thing, because if people don't have any money that they can spend, they're not going to increase spending. So for us to change that, we need to dig into entrepreneurship. We need to help people to create their own work, and we need to employ people. If we can do that, there will be money in the people's hands to start spending. But I think we should be wise around the idea of what they're spending their money on. It should not be fancy stuff in a recession. It should be necessities. What do people need to live every day? And just a few thoughts on that. Like, if I'm always thinking to myself, if I'm in a good business industry, it's got to be a necessity. If the person, or if you're in the food industry, it's a good industry because people need to eat every day. If you're in the security industry, people want to feel safe. That's a very good industry to be in. Same with clothing, same with construction. Like, people need a roof over their heads. So if you can start a business that addresses these direct necessities, you will never run out of business because you're serving people's daily needs. And if you can serve people's daily needs and they actually start spending money on daily needs, then you're increasing consumer spending. So normally the economic analysts, or those guys, the clever guys, they say they need to increase spending on durable goods like your cars, your furniture, electronical stuff, etc. But why don't we rather focus on, instead of increasing spending on this fancy stuff, why don't we increase spending on necessities? It's an idea. I've never tested the idea, but I'm putting it out there because I think it can work. Are you guys with me? Cool. That is just a bit unclear. I've got some points that I want to mention there. So we got to increase consumer spending. And as I mentioned, for consumers to spend money, they need money. So we need to increase employment, and that's going to happen through education. And that's what I love about what Matt and the guys are doing here. Nelson Mandela said, one of the most equaling factors is education. Getting people educated, training them to do a job practically, and then plugging them into the mainstream economy. That's going to make a massive difference. Because you want to educate people, you want to coach them onto how to do this stuff. And one of the biggest things in South Africa when it comes to entrepreneurship is the entrepreneurs say that they don't get access to the mainstream economy. So how do you change that? How do you get people active in the mainstream economy? That's huge. Because if you don't get them active in that economy, they're not going to really be profitable with their business. So that's massive and something we have to think. And if you look at these ideas of consumer spending and employment, for consumers to spend, there's another thing that I want to mention as well. It's to cut the interest rate. Okay, now that's not in our control. We don't have any authority over the interest rates. That's a Reserve Bank. But what we do have control over is creating employment and educating people to be entrepreneurs. That's what we have the ability over. We can actually control that. It just takes a lot of effort. And one thing in this industry that I'm operating in is I'm seeing that entrepreneurship really is the buzzword in South Africa. Everybody's speaking about entrepreneurship. Everybody agrees that we need to increase this sector, but it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do because business is very difficult. I always think to myself, business is not complex. It's not difficult to understand. I've got a service, you need it so bad, you're willing to pay me for it, and I'm good enough to deliver it for you. That's business. You need it. I've got it, you pay me. It's a transaction, but it's difficult. It's very, very, very difficult to generate a lead and to convert that lead into a sale. That's one of the biggest barriers to successful entrepreneurship, is generating a lead and converting that lead into a sale. And to teach that to other people is more difficult because they need to obviously catch it themselves. Are you guys still with me? Great. Are we making progress? I believe so. Okay, cool. So the next slide is a very practical process to how you can do business in the sweet spot. And it's a bit unclear there, but I'm going to go through. It's 3 circles. The top left one is unlocking human potential. The second one, number B, is unlocking investment. And number C is plugging it into the mainstream. And if you can get the balance between those 3 circles, then you find the sweet spot. And if you can focus on that sweet spot, you can really drive into results. And that is one of the biggest ideas of Masikhule Sonke. First of all, for consumer spending to increase, you need to unlock human potential. I'm going to say that again. For consumer spending to increase, you need to unlock human potential. Every single person on earth has a certain amount of potential. And we need to unlock that potential, and you do it through education, coaching, and mentorship. Education, coaching, mentorship. You unlock human potential. Now that person is educated, he is coached, he knows how to do the practical stuff that is needed, and now he needs to be mentored over a period of time. One of the biggest reasons for why I am today where I am is because of solid mentorship. Solid mentorship. And there's one particular mentor that I've placed myself under his authority. And if he says no, the answer is no. If he says yes, the answer is yes, because I trust him. And he looks at me and he can see I'm ready or I'm not ready. And that has helped me a lot. So mentorship is huge. There's a lot of retired people in Howick. And one idea that I think is quite a good idea is, how do you take those retired workforce, that brain power, and create a mentorship program out of that they start to give back to the young people in Howick that's in that industry. So if there's a retired construction specialist in Howick and there's a young entrepreneur who wants to go into construction, link the two together. Let them have a meeting every month, once a month. Let them spend time together, because that guy has a certain amount of wisdom that he can now give to this young entrepreneur. All right. So the first thing you want to do is you want to unlock human potential. That's going to increase consumer spending if it's done properly. The second thing is unlocking investment. Unlocking investment. And there is money for investment in South Africa. The problem is we're in a recession, so the return of investment looks very bleak. So the guy with the investment money says, I'm not going to invest. I'm rather going to play it safe, which makes total sense because you don't want to lose money. I mean, money is important. You've worked hard for your money. You don't want to lose that money just to fund a pipe dream. Am I right? Yes, all right. I hope I'm right. I believe I am. So you got to unlock human potential. Unlock investment. And the way you unlock investment is you need a detailed tactical plan where you can prove to the investor that this is a good investment. and it will bring dividends for you going forward, or it will serve the community that ultimately will benefit you in the long run. Okay, so unlocking human potential, that's the first thing. If you can do that, the investor will look at the people and say, I see potential in this group of people. I'm going to invest in them. So then you unlock that financial capacity to start to build something that will be positive. And the last thing is plugging it into the mainstream economy. So you've got the human potential, you've got the investment. Now you got to figure out, how am I going to plug this human potential into the mainstream economy? Otherwise, it's like if you remove a coal from the fire, that coal will go cold very quickly. How do you get the coals into the fire, and all the coals together creates heat, difference, influence in the community? Plugging it into the mainstream economy. And I believe there are a few ideas around that. The first one is, you got to create an economic engine. You got to create an economic engine. Now, I'm going to speak a lot about the tourism in Howick. I think it's absolutely massive. And you got to use that as an economic engine. An economic engine is something that creates value, that brings money from the outside to the inside. So there's money coming in, so the economy is actually growing up. And that economic engine then gets tied to a few industries working together to keep this thing going. That's one way of plugging it into the mainstream economy. So let's take tourism, for instance. Howick spends a lot of time and people from the outside in. There's more money, so there's more business opportunity. Now you got to look around, you got to say, what do people need in Howick? People need food every day. People need clothing. I've already mentioned this. People need safe transport. People need security. People need clothing. I did say that. People want entertainment. So start a business that focuses on people's necessities. What do people actually need? If I start a business that's selling food at a reasonable price, if I've got a food business that sells at a reasonable price with good service, quality products, I'm going to be in business forever because I'm serving people's needs. People need to eat every day. So I'm creating an opportunity to make sales every day and to bring cash flow into the business every day. When you're in a recession, I don't think it's wise to focus on fancy stuff that people don't need, because they cut their spending. And the first thing they cut is, what do I actually don't need this, so I'm going to cut this. Focus on people's needs. If you're serving businesses, what does that business actually need versus what is a nice to have? All right. Cool. Next slide. Let's dig into Masikhule Howick. The purpose of Masikhule Howick, as discussed with Matt, I've sent him a few proposals through. You can go to the next slide. The vision or the idea is economic transformation through an economic engine. That's the idea. That's the idea. Creating economic engines in Howick that will bring the mainstream economy from the outside in and really create opportunity. And I was in Cape Town. I was going on a tour in Khayelitsha. It's a great experience. I really enjoyed it. Tete is in Ndiafunda. For all the Zulu people, I think they understand me. So I'm really starting to move over, and I'm trying to cross the barrier. And I went to Khayelitsha, and I saw a lot of business opportunity. So there's a ShopRite, there's major brands doing business in Khayelitsha. And the problem with that is the consumer goes into that ShopRite store, they spend money, but the money's going out to head office. So even though there's a good business platform and there's business happening, it's taking money out. You want to reverse that cycle. And that's the idea of Masikhule Sonke, is how do I get the money of South Africa into Howick? And I've got some very practical ideas as I did my research on Howick that I'm going to share with you guys as we continue. The vision is rebooting the economy in Howick through tourism, the forestry and agriculture industry, and entrepreneurship. And then the values is responsibility and leadership. Transferring leadership to the people, the citizens of Howick, to go forward with this idea. Transferring leadership. That's a very powerful idea. I'm going to quickly explain where that idea came from. So everybody knows the All Blacks, obviously. They're the most successful international rugby team of the modern age. It's incredible for me if I look at a team like the All Blacks, and I'm a very passionate Springbok, but it's exceptional if I look at them and it's like they've got over a 90% win rate in a professional sport. How do you do that? It's incredible. It is incredible. And one of the things that Graham Henry set out when he took over the reins in 2003 or 2004 is he said he's going to create leaders. And the way that he created leaders is he transferred the coaching responsibility from them to the players. That's massive. And even up to today, you'll see that when in a final or semi-final, they've got cameras in the change rooms, they would, like with the Crusaders the last 2 years, they would have a camera in the change room and show what's going on. And the 1 year, I think it was 2 years ago, the Lions played the Crusaders in Christchurch, and they went with the camera inside, and at halftime, in the Lions section, the coach was giving all the orders. On the other side, at the Crusaders, the players were talking, the coach was standing outside the circle. Because the players take responsibility, they need to take action on the field, and they need to win the game, not the coach. The coach is just actually a resource. So how do you transfer responsibility to the residents to actually take up the baton and say, we're going to make a difference? We're not going to look at anybody else. I'm going to look at the man in the mirror, and I'm going to start something that's going to change this community. So that's the values that Masikhule Sonke will be built on. Great. Next slide. Okay, the quote there says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. That was said by Helen Keller. And if anybody thought anything's impossible, she won the Nobel Prize, and she was blind and deaf. That's incredible. She couldn't speak and she couldn't hear. She couldn't hear and she couldn't see. That's incredible. And she won the Nobel Prize. And she actually created quotes. The Google is full of quotes from Helen Keller. So it's never impossible. Never impossible. Anything is possible. Okay, the power of vision. Next clip. Just a few quick ideas on vision. The discipline of vision. I call it discipline because once I write that vision down, I put it on the wall, I'm very excited. Who's been there? And then what happens a week later? Oh, nothing. And then you're like 8 months down the line, I tried this and I tried that, didn't work. No, you weren't disciplined to actually carry it through. It's like discipline is like a conscious decision where you commit to what you said you were going to do. And that commitment comes from the decision, and the decision comes from the Latin word, homicide, which means to kill off any other alternative. So if I'm writing down a vision and I decide that I'm going to do this come hell or high water, I literally killed off any other alternative that's going to elude me from this vision. That's powerful. That's why it takes so long for people to make decisions. Because they know, like if you're really serious, you take long to make a decision. Because you know, once I've made that decision, there's no going back. If you take your own words seriously, which you should. Okay, so vision clarifies purpose and sets self-imposed standards. Self-imposed standards. There's a scripture in Proverbs 29 verse 18 that says, without vision, people cast off restraint. Without vision, people, that word means, throw off self-discipline. It's incredible. Without vision, people throw off self-discipline. So if you're struggling with discipline, you're actually struggling with a clear vision for your life. Something to think about. Vision gives direction and makes life simple. It makes life so simple. If I commit to my vision, it's very easy. It's not easy. It's simplistic. I don't have to think about decisions like the vision decides for me. If I've decided that the vision is for me to build entrepreneurship school and to create entrepreneurs in South Africa, I'm not going to go into the stock market and do Bitcoin. Just an example. I'm not saying Bitcoin is bad. I'm saying that's not the vision. So if I step outside the barrier, I'm actually losing focus of my vision, and I'm not going to achieve what I need to achieve on earth. So it gives you direction. It makes life simplistic. So I'm not going to go into Bitcoin because I've got a vision. So there's a guy at the office building where we are, and he's always like telling me how Bitcoin is doing and I should get involved. And I just looked at him the one and I said, you know what? I'm betting on myself. I'm investing in myself. I'm investing in my business. I'm not going to invest in Bitcoin. But I'm glad for you. And he got it. He's like, no, he understands. And then he stopped. So then when I asked him, he's just like, no, it's doing great. Oh, it's doing bad. You know, it's like the emotions of the stock market. So I'm happy I'm not operating there. Okay, the importance of vision. The last thing, vision empowers beyond resources. Vision empowers beyond resources. The biggest problem that I spot with what I'm busy with in South Africa is every 9 out of 10 people tell me they can't start the business because they don't have money. That's not you. It's like you find a way to get out of it because you don't want to discipline yourself to actually build the business. There's always a way. There's always a way. If you look at Steve Jobs, I'm going to quickly tell you guys a story. What's the time? I'm going to quickly tell a story. Steve Jobs started Apple with $1,350 in the bank. He built 100 Apple computers. He didn't have staff. He didn't have a building. And he didn't have the equipment. And he couldn't afford to buy any of that. Yet he built 100 computers. That's incredible. How do you do that? He had a vision. It empowered him beyond the resources that he had to his capability. He made a deal with a guy to buy 50 computers, and then he tried to negotiate to get the equipment based on the deal. The guy said no. He let them communicate and make a deal, and then they gave him the equipment. So he was resourceful. Resourceful. Cool. And the importance of vision is you know what needs to be done and you know how you can do it. So it consists of a purpose, a strategy, a tactical approach, and for every tactical step you have a deadline to discipline yourself. Cool. Next step. The strategy. The strategy behind what you guys can do in Howick. Okay, very cool. If I was here, man, I tell you, I would build a few businesses. The first thing is, again, the 3 circles. I love the circles because you always get to a sweet spot if you connect the circles. And if you operate in the sweet spot, you're in the right space. The first circle is natural resources. You got to look at your location to create a proper economic engine. What's the natural resources that's here in Howick? Okay, according to my research, it's the Howick Falls, the Midlands Dam, you've got the forestry industry and agriculture. That's the first section that you can create economic engines on. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is the N3. I'm going to get the stats later on about how many people drive through this N3 to get to Durban from Joburg on December. It's a lot. Question, how do you get them to stop and spend money? Okay, and then the economic engine part is, in my opinion, if I was situated here and if I was in control of this, I would say a strong tourism industry to capitalize fully on the forestry and the farmlands, and how to get involved in the logistics and transport hub on the N3. Okay, so that's my take on it. That's what I would have done. You've got the natural resources, Howick Falls, forestry industry, agriculture. You've got the N3, which is an asset. And now you got to connect this. And you got to get to a sweet spot. And you create 2 or 3 proper economical engines. And you'll be surprised how many businesses you can plug into that economic engine that will bring those businesses into the mainstream economy of South Africa. Okay, next. The tactical approach. So that's a strategy. The tactical approach, as I mentioned, engine number 1 is tourism. And the opportunities that I see there is accommodation services, restaurants, entertainment, filling stations, refreshment stop, security, retail. Security, massive, 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 massive. if we want to fix the tourism industry in South Africa, we need to pick up security. We heard about that story last year where a bus of Netherlands or Holland people was stopped just outside Oliver Tambo, and they were robbed at gunpoint. 60 Hollanders were robbed at gunpoint just outside Oliver Tambo. And it's like those guys are going back to Holland, and they go tell their friends and family. They then, in return, the word just spreads about what happened in South Africa. If we want to fix, this is our biggest income, it's our biggest opportunity, according to it's my opinion, it's an idea. It's our biggest opportunity to really create income into South Africa. It's tourism, but we got to make it safe for the tourists. And security is huge. It's like you can't focus on a tourism industry if there's no security. You can't. So if you guys want to start pushing tourism in Howick, I suggest you first look at a tactical safety plan for tourists. That would be my intake. It's like, get a tactical process that's actually keeping the guys safe. I don't want to go somewhere and my life is in danger. I'm not going to go. If I've got any skeptical thing that says I might be in danger there, I will not go. My brother told me that in the Philippines, people get human trafficked. So I wanted to go to the Philippines. I'm not going anymore. If it's true or not, it doesn't matter. Because I've heard that bad word of mouth, and I'm like, I'm not going anymore, thank you. I'll rather go to Europe where it's a bit safer if I want to travel. What's people's perception? What is people's perception about your idea, your market, or your business? Okay, the next one. Second engine, transport and logistics. Use the busy N3 to Howick's advantage. A truck stop, a car wash, logistics. Thinking out the box. That's very basic, but it's very practical. It's very realistic. The next one is forestry. And the forestry is not something that I want to spend too much time on because I'm not sure how the structure works with the big forestry companies. So I don't have a lot of knowledge on this, so I would rather leave that with Matt to discuss with the people who knows what's going on there. But if I would give a suggestion, it would be creating logistics companies inside Howick that distributes the forestry equipment and stuff. Carpentry, paper supplies, security again. You want to keep these things safe. So for everything that you build here in South Africa, there's security opportunity. If I was good in security, I would start a business, right, Rob? Anyways, okay. Next one, farmlands. Again, not something that I'm too familiar with here in Howick is the farmlands. The agriculture, I'm not connected with the farmers here. But logistics, you can start a logistics company in Howick and you can make deals with the people here and actually transport their stuff out to South Africa. Instead of getting a company that's based in Gauteng and the money is going to Gauteng, you keep an extra stream of that money here in Howick by just starting a logistics company and serving the people here in Howick. That's one way of stopping money leaving Howick. Like, what can you do here? What can you create here? What can you produce here that's not necessary to outsource to other companies in South Africa? Okay. And then the last tactical approach will be a lot of the industries that I've mentioned on necessities. If you get the economical engines right, you get money into Howick, then you start to focus on construction, consumption, security, education, health, recycling, transport, logistics, communication, and internet services and entertainment. That's all industries that's fairly needed by people on a daily basis. If you can cover that, you'll never run out of business. If you stay competitive and if you keep your prices good and your service good. All right. Next slide. Now for the practical branding ideas. Okay, there is a lovely picture of Love Howick. For the practical branding ideas, idea number 1. Become the tourism hub of the Midlands region. Become the tourism hub for the Midlands region. How can you guys be the center point for all the tourism activities in the Midlands region up to the Drakensberg? Like you guys can do tours from Howick to the Drakensberg, then you're still making the money. The money's still coming into Howick. And I've looked at a few areas in the surrounding space here. There's so much potential. It's such a beautiful space. You can work so much if you just think a bit outside the box with people experience when they come here. It's a few different stuff that you can use. So idea number 1, become the tourism hub of the Midlands region. Okay, next slide. And the strategy that I would use is business number 1 needs to be a proper tourism agency. A proper tourism agency that markets Howick tourism packages to South Africa. At the end of the day, tourism, the strength of your tourism for me comes down to 2 things. The first thing I mentioned, security. You got to make it safe for the people. The second thing is marketing. I was in Spain last year for a month, and in that whole month period, I think I met 1 or 2 people, and I met a lot of people that actually knew about Cape Town. And Cape Town has Table Mountain, obviously, which is one of the 7 wonders in the world. Yet when I tell people I'm from South Africa, they're not sure where that is. So the first thing they say is Nelson Mandela. I say yes. The second thing is they don't really know anything about South Africa. Then I say, I'm from Cape Town, so I'm expecting Cape Town, yeah, well, I've heard about that. And the people just look at me, and I'm like, don't you know Cape Town? They say, no. I said, Table Mountain? No. And I was shocked, but this is the reality. And if you want to fix that, you got to do better marketing. So you got to understand that I'm operating in a different space. My competitors is not tourism companies in South Africa. My competitors is someone is planning to go to on a trip, adventure. And he goes on Google and he's like, I want to travel. You're actually competing with every other nation in the world because it's an industry. And if you can do better marketing, your ad comes up first, they're going to click and they're going to say, why don't we go to South Africa? If your marketing is bad, then they're going to see the first ad and it's going to be Switzerland. So they're going to say, why don't we go to Switzerland? And you just lost an opportunity because your marketing is not good enough. So if you want to fix tourism, get the security right and do proper marketing. But you got to understand the marketing that you're stepping into. If you guys want to take on tourism in South Africa, your competitors become Durban because people want to go to Umhlanga. But how do you compete with that? How do you get people to actually rather come to Howick instead of Umhlanga? It's a marketing game. If your advertising increases and gets better, you could make the sale above Durban. Same with the Drakensberg. The same with the Drakensberg. Someone can say, I want to go to the Drakensberg, and they type it into Google, and your ad comes up for Howick. And then you structure it just very cleverly. You say something like, need to come to the Midlands, or do you want to come to the Midlands? Howick, just a few minutes away from the Drakensberg. And then the person's like, oh, okay, click. Let me see what's going on here. Then that tourism agency has a few packages, including a day trip to the Drakensberg. So the guy's like, this is amazing. Everything in one. Love it. Does that make sense? Nice. Required skill to do this tourism agency is marketing and sales. You need to be able to market Howick to South Africa. That will generate leads, and you need to be able to convert those leads into sales. It sounds very easy. It's not a difficult to understand process. It's not complex. It's very simplistic, but it's not easy because it's a very competitive space. And then you create tourism packages, as I mentioned, that includes accommodation, transport, Howick activities, restaurant passes, entertainment passes. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a diagram that I created there. And it really starts with a tourism agency. They now create a package of accommodation, restaurant pass, transport for the tourist, entertainment packages. But every one of those packages that includes every one of those sections is a business on its own. And that's where the people work together. So the tourism agency takes a cut. Then the accommodation is included, but the accommodation service is a business on its own. And then they get their payment from the tourism agency because the money is going into that business. Second one is transport. That's a business on its own. That's business number 3. Business number 4 is Howick activity. Somebody that knows Howick very well and that's got a very charismatic personality that can show the tourists around and have a great experience. Business number 5 is restaurants. Business number 6 is entertainment. So that's how you create an economic engine and you pluck a bunch of businesses that's going into the mainstream economy. Are you guys with me? Are you thinking? That's very important. You guys need to think of ideas. Another idea that I spoke with Matt about this morning that I never considered is the coffee industry here. It's quite good. I love the coffee here. I'm a big coffee snob. Not proud of it. It is what it is. It's not my fault. I got to the best roastery and he introduced me to the best coffee. Okay. But if you guys can create certain brand ideas that you pluck to Howick, it's going to attract certain groups of people. And that comes from good marketing. So that agency can then go and create a different website that says Howick. The idea behind that could be Howick, the coffee hub of the Midlands or the coffee hub of KwaZulu-Natal. Now the coffee enthusiasts in South Africa is going to say, well, we need to go check it out. Let's see, what packages do they have for coffee drinkers? That's another way to approach the tourism industry that's different than the competitors. And that guy maybe could have gone to Durban or Umhlanga, but now he sees there's massive coffee in Howick, so he's surely got to sleep a night over before he gets to Umhlanga. Another idea could be mountain biking, trail running. So you do a proper few events here, and you create the idea that Howick is the trail running, adventure, mountain biking mecca of KwaZulu-Natal. Now you attract a new group of people. Who knows where they would have gone? Maybe to Cape Town, because that's also quite a big space for that industry. Now they come to Howick, and they come here, they spend money. That's the idea. All right, next, idea number 2. Branding. Idea number 2 is the N3. Okay, so here comes the cool stats. I've been waiting all day to give them. It's this one and the next slide. So the question you got to ask yourself is, I saw a truck stop just here before, what's that place? Hillberry or what? Hilton, yes, there's a truck stop. How do you build a truck stop in Howick that really takes the industry to a next level? Diesel opportunity. So somebody can purchase a piece of land, and he now creates a platform for a few businesses to come and build on his piece of land, and they pay him rent. So you're working together and you're distributing the opportunity that you're creating. So there needs to be a diesel refilling spot. A restaurant can be set up there, a shop, refreshment, accommodation. Some truckers would like to maybe sleep for an hour or two. He could be very tired. He needs to take a shower. And then lastly, security. I was watching Carte Blanche the one day, and I see there's a lot of trucks that passes through Durban to Joburg, and it's actually being burned down. Who saw that? It's a massive problem. We're losing millions, billions of rands. So if I was in security, I would ask myself, how can I start an escort, a security company, and solve the logistics company's problem? They're going to have to spend a bit extra, but it's better than losing all that millions in the economy. And you have like chauffeuring this truck all the way from Durban to Joburg with armed guards. That could be birthed out of Howick. And then you guys could be saving South Africa's economy with billions of rands. Just an idea. Okay, truck stop would be the first business. It's the space that's purchased. And then somebody sets up a diesel, refill, gas station, a restaurant, food like retail, entertainment, security, and a truck wash. Somebody can come and wash the trucks and make an extra buck. Cool. The next clip is still on the N3. It's a massive asset that's running straight through Howick. Your question needs to be, how do we get people to stop and spend money? So in December of 2014, 2015, 3.6 million people from Gauteng visited Durban in December with an indirect spend of 15.8 billion rand. 1 December. How do you get people to stop in Howick and spend some of that billions? You create a coffee vibe, like all the enthusiasts from Joburg's going to say, we need to stop in Howick to drink coffee. You start with that. You create entertainment for the kids. I mean, like, there's a few models that just is absolutely brilliant. One of them is the beauty industry. Women always want to look beautiful, so you're always going to have business. Another one is kids. If you can nail it with the kids, you're going to get the money. Because the parents will do what the kids want to do most of the times to entertain them, right? Okay. How can you get people to stop in Howick and spend some of that money? How do you get them to stop a night? Like, okay, I'm planning 2 weeks in Durban. How do you get them to change that to 30 nights in Durban, 1 night in Howick? What can you give the guy? What value can you give the people to actually make them stop, force them to stop? You got to think outside the box. And this is all very good ideas, all practical ideas, but you got to somebody's going to take responsibility. Somebody needs to take responsibility and say, I can fill that gap or that gap or that gap. All right. So that next slide will be the next diagram, which is the first business to get people to stop would be a proper petrol garage. And to be honest, I've done a lot of the trips from Joburg to Umhlanga with my parents as I grew up, because I'm from Joburg originally. And we normally stopped in Harry Smith. That's normally where we stopped. So they got that thing spot on. All the people stop there and spend their money. How do you reverse that cycle? Or not reverse the cycle, but how do you get people to stop here as well? It's a bit more difficult because you're closer to Durban, so you're just like, I want to get there, right? I want to get to the beach. That's the Gautenger's mindset. I want to get to the beach. That's how we all think there. And then you get to the first day and you just stay in the flat in anyway, so you maybe want to put that into the advertising. Okay. Okay, so petrol garage number 1, a fuel refill, supply people with food, refreshments, entertainment, I think could be huge. To get people to stay, do a few concerts, or get something that entertains people that's in the spirit of the December holiday. That's going to capture their attention, because if you want to do proper marketing, you need to get the attention of people first, then you communicate to them, then they trust you. So get their attention, get like entertainment that's in the spirit of December, push that marketing all over Joburg, and people's going to think, yeah, we need to stop in Howick. It's a marketing game. Definitely. Security, there's an opportunity for that, and the car wash. Got to think outside the box. You're sitting with an asset that's bringing traffic through the area that you can utilize. It's possible. It's possible, but you're going to have to be creative. And another idea, the next slide, still focused on the N3, is how can you get people to take 1 night out of their schedule and sleep over in Howick? Entertainment, that's my bet. Okay, you can skip to the next one, and then the next one. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's an African proverb. Very fitting. You got to work together with these industries. All right. And okay, next. Okay, so now we're getting into possible practical steps to kickstart this thing, because it's one thing to do a presentation, it's another thing to actually see something happening after the presentation is completed. And what is required to start this process is, as I mentioned early on, you got to unlock human potential. That's the first thing, through entrepreneurship, and you got to unlock investment. So what we need to get this thing kick-started is we need entrepreneurs sitting here today serious about starting a business and changing the economical situation in Howick. That's the first thing we need, because there can be investment, but if there's no willing people, then the buck's going to stop right there. Nothing's going to happen after that. And we need business owners who wants to take their business to the next level. So there might be a tourism agency sitting here, and they're like, but we want to go bigger for Howick. Then you got to understand marketing. So you got to start to compete with the Drakensberg, with Umhlanga, with Margate, all those other people. That's your competition. And the next thing, unlocking human potential, unlocking investments. In the funding section is training, first of all. Investors sponsor entrepreneurs training. That's one idea. I'm going to get to how that could be practically broken down for a return for the investor. Investors to invest in new businesses, money versus effort there. And the last one is investors to purchase property for development. And then you create a space for other people to build a business, and they pay you the rent for the space that they occupy. That's what we need to get this thing started. I'm going to say again, we need a few, I would say 20 to 25 serious entrepreneurs that's ready now to say, I'm going to start a business now, and I'm going to focus on one of these economical engines. That's the first thing we need. We need businesses to do the same, to say, let's get involved and stuck into these economical engines. And we need people here sitting with not millions of rands, not hundreds of thousands of rands, but a few thousands of rands. That's what we need. Who's willing to say, you know what, I'm going to invest in one or two entrepreneurs' education, and I'm going to help them to actually build a business here in Howick. And I'm going to show you the stats now, or the details now. It's not that out of reach. Next slide is the project itself. So the idea that I bring to you guys here, and the approach that I'm taking, is a partnership between the investor and the entrepreneur. So it's not an investment for charity. It's an investment for more of a partnership idea. And the idea would be to say you got one investor and he's partnering with one entrepreneur, and both have certain responsibilities in this agreement. The first responsibility is for the investor to the project that I want to launch here is the entrepreneurship program over a 6-month period. So 3 months will be education. The next 3 months will be, let's physically launch your business and help you to get that first sale. So that's the 2-3 month processes. The first 3 months is 4,900 Rand per entrepreneur. The second 3 months is 4,900 Rand per entrepreneur. So the suggestion that I bring here is the partnership is 50-50 between the entrepreneur and the investor. And the investor then invests in the first investment section is 3,675 Rand. So he invests 75% into this entrepreneur with only an amount of 3,675. The entrepreneur then invests in himself the rest of the 25%, which is 1,225 Rand. Then his course is covered for the entrepreneurship program, where he can actually start to educate himself now and get ready to start a business. The second investment is the same as the first one. For the second 3 months, 3,675 Rand. but that only then takes place if this entrepreneur is in a realistic position to continue. So after the first 3 months, every entrepreneur gets an opportunity to present to a panel, and then that investor that partnered with him is part of the panel, and they then decide, right, this guy's ready to continue and actually start a business. He's not busy with a pipe dream. And then the second investment takes place, which is 3,675 Rand. And the investor again invests from his side 25%, 1,225 Rand. And the responsibility is then the investor mentors this entrepreneur, so they stay in contact, preferably investor in the same industry that the entrepreneur is venturing into, because he already has knowledge on that and he can really add in some good value. And the entrepreneur's responsibility is managing director, in other words, day-to-day operations. Okay, the next slide. As I mentioned, phase 1 of this will be education, 4,900 Rand, 3 months, 1 2-hour session per week. We do an online group class once a week. So it's all the people from Howick. They get together where there's a good Wi-Fi spot, and they all are in tuned in the same vision. So then we start to diversify, right, you're going in this industry, you're going in that industry, and you're going to fill all those spots for the economical engine. And the goal would be to help the guys start a business, and I suggest a minimum of 25 entrepreneurs needs to be available. That means a minimum of 25 investors, or an investor can choose more than one entrepreneur. You can say, I want to sponsor 2 or 3 guys and take shares, because they're taking 50-50 shares. So if this entrepreneur is successful in the long run, it's going to benefit the investor as well. So that's a very nice way to actually get both people to really commit to this thing and do their best to make it successful. All right, and the breakdown would be 12 sessions in the first 3 months, which starts with the first 2 sessions is vision and purpose, really understanding entrepreneurship. If you get your perception right, you will build on the right foundation, and that gives you an opportunity to actually build a successful business. Session 3 to 8 comes down to how do I do marketing, how do I build a brand, how do I advertise, how do I do sales. Session 9 is your operational system. Session 10 will be financial planning, and session 11 and 12, a funding preparation pitch to make sure all your plans are in place to address the investors, that you can show yourself ready to continue to the next phase. And then phase 2, next slide, which is my second last slide. The next phase is then funding pitch. It's a 1-week process where you get the investors, they sit, they listen, and they decide who they will invest into for the next 3 months with the same amount that I mentioned earlier. And then you also can get really practical. If there's guys with really good opportunities that's focusing on the economic engines and you can see this could actually happen, then you want to look at a bigger investment. Again, not millions, because many startup entrepreneurs doesn't have the capacity to contain R1 million funding. It's not in you. It's like when you buy a lotto ticket and you win the 20 million, you never grew into that amount of capacity, so that 20 million destroys you. It's the same concept. You can't give a guy that's got barely business experience millions of rands and say, there you go, build a business. It ain't gonna work. You gotta grow the people into that. And my suggestion then would be you're looking at plus minus 100,000 Rand investment, where the money will go, if you go to the next slide, the money goes to compliance registration, branding development, both of them 5,000 Rand respectively, launching marketing campaigns, helping the entrepreneur with a laptop, which if you go to Takealot, it doesn't need to be the fanciest laptop, but you can buy that for 8,000 Rand. And the last one is, instead of building office space, or you create or you build a container space that you renovate into office space, and that costs 82,000 Rand with one company in Durban. So then they come and deliver the renovated office space in Howick, and there you give the entrepreneur an opportunity. He's got a laptop, he's got a renovated office space, and he's got a mainstream economy that is actually plugging into, and he's got the education and the systems now to make this thing successful. And that is it.